Tonight's story is The Polar Express. Polar Express by Chris Van Allsburg. On Christmas Eve many years ago, I lay quietly in my bed. I did not rustle the sheets. I breathed slowly and silently. I was listening for a sound a friend had told me I'd never hear the ringing bells of Santa's sleigh. There is no Santa, my friend had insisted, but I knew he was wrong. Late that night I did hear sounds, though, not the ringing of bells. From outside came the sounds of hissing steam and squeaking metal. I looked through my window and saw a train standing perfectly still in front of my house. It was wrapped in an apron of steam. Snowflakes fell lightly around it. The conductor stood at the open door of one of the cars. He took a large pocket watch from his vest, then looked up at my window. I put on my slippers and robe. I tiptoed downstairs and out of the door. "All aboard!" the conductor cried out. I ran up to him. "Well," he said, "are you coming?" "Where?" I asked. "Why, to the North Pole, of course," was his answer. "This is the Polar Express." I took his outstretched hand, and he pulled me aboard. The train was filled with other children, all in their pajamas and nightgowns. We sang Christmas carols and ate candies.
The mom and the dad?
This is just for the kids. We sang Christmas carols and ate candies with nougat centers as white as snow, and drank hot cocoa as thick and rich as melted chocolate bars. Outside, the lights of towns and villagers flickered, and the distance of the Polar Express raced northward. Soon there were no more lights to be seen. We traveled through cold, dark forest, where lean wolves roamed and white-tailed rabbits hid from our train, and the thundered through the quiet wilderness. See all those wolves?
Well, the wolves kill those.
Yeah. They're just out there enjoying the night. We climbed mountains so high it seemed as if we could scrape the moon. But the Polar Express never slowed down. Faster and faster we ran, along, rolling over peaks and through valleys like a car on a roller coaster. The mountains turned into hills, and the hills to snow-covered plains. We crossed a barren desert of ice, the great polar ice cap.
Dad, I got a question. I like to see, not the Polar Express.
Lights appeared in the distance. They looked like the lights of a strange ocean liner sailing on a frozen sea. "There," said the conductor, "is the North Pole." The North Pole, it was a huge city standing alone at the top of the world, filled with factories where every Christmas toy was made. At first we saw no elves. They gathered at the center of the city.
They just saw Santa.
They saw all these buildings as a city at first. "That's where Santa will give his first gift of Christmas." "Who receives the first gift?" we all asked. The conductor answered, "He will choose one of you." "Look," shouted one of the children, "the elves outside." We saw hundreds of elves as their train drew closer to the center of the North Pole. We slowed to a crawl, so crowded were the streets with Santa's helpers. When the Polar Express could go no farther, we stopped and the conductor led us outside. We pressed through the crowd to the edge of the large open circle. In front of us stood Santa's sleigh. The reindeer were excited. They pranced and paced, ringing the silver sleigh bells that hung from their harnesses. It was a magical sound like nothing I'd ever heard. Across the circle, the elves moved.
When they get out and get into Santa's sleigh?
Go for a ride, I think. The elves cheered wildly as Santa came out. He marched over to us and pointed to me and said, "Let's have this fellow here." He jumped into his sleigh. The conductor handed me up. I sat on Santa's knee, and he asked, "Now, what would you like for Christmas?" I know that I could have any gift I could imagine, but the thing I wanted most for Christmas was not inside Santa's giant bag. What I wanted more than anything was one silver bell from Santa's sleigh. When I asked, Santa smiled. Then he gave me a hug and told an elf to cut a bell from the reindeer's harness. The elf tossed it up to Santa. He stood holding the bell high above him and called out the first gift of Christmas. A bell.
Why there's bells? Oh.
A clock struck midnight as the elves roared their approval. Santa handed the bell to me, and I put it in my bathrobe pocket. The conductor helped me down from the sleigh. Santa shouted out to the reindeers' names and cracked his whip.
What happens when he stays in there?
He flies from house to house and he gets out to deliver his presents. His team charged forward and climbed into the air. Santa circled once above us, then disappeared in a cloud of dark polar sky. As soon as we were back inside the Polar Express, the other children asked to see the bell. I reached into my pocket, but the only thing I felt was a hole. I had lost the silver bell from Santa Claus's sleigh.
Camera's not working.
Let's hurry outside and look for it, one of the children said, but the train gave a sudden lurch and started moving. We were on our way home. It broke my heart to lose the bell. When the train reached my house, I sadly left the other children. I stood at my doorway and waved goodbye. The conductor said something from the moving train, but I couldn't hear him. "What?" I yelled out. He cupped his hands around his mouth. "Merry Christmas!" he shouted. The Polar Express let out a loud blast from this whistle and sped away.
Now look at the guy that yelled so loud.
On Christmas morning, my little sister Sarah and I opened our presents. When it looked as if everything had been unwrapped, Sarah found one last small box behind the tree. It had my name on it. Inside was a silver bell. There was a note. "Found this on the seat of my sleigh. Fix that hole in your pocket. Signed, Mr. C." I shook the bell. It made the most beautiful sound my sister and I had ever heard, but my mother said, "Oh, that's too bad." "Yes," said my father, "it's broken." When I'd shake the bell, my parents had not heard a sound.
Dad, look at that guy. See, he's yelling so loud.
At one time, most of my friends could hear the bell, but as years passed, it fell silent for all of them. Even Sarah found one Christmas that she could no longer hear its sweet sound. Though I've grown old, the bell still rings for me, as it does for all who truly believe.
Is that a true story?